What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Hot Stove right here on the channel and on X. How is everybody doing on this Tuesday, December 16th? And we, of course, got a ton of rumors to talk about, a ton of reports. Nothing really happening besides the Jorge Polanco signing for 2 years, $40 million. And we have to wonder, when is something actually going to happen? Right? We hear all the reports, we hear all the rumors. The Mets are running this guy, Mets are talking to this team, and it's all over the place. At some point, the Mets need to fill their roster. Right? Some people, hopefully no Met fan, should be excited about the current Mets rotation. I think that should be a fact. Right? Nolan McLean is the bright spot in this rotation. Some would consider him the ace of the staff. And that is my concern when it comes to the Mets rotation. I don't want Nolan McLean pitching on opening day and be considered our ace. I just don't think that needs to happen. There's more than enough options out there on the trade market and the free agent market where Nolan McLean does not need to be pitching on opening day and be considered the New York Mets ace of the staff. Because if Nolan McLean is the ace of the staff, that means the Mets didn't go out and get the top pitchers on the market. That's a problem in my book. You can't rely on Cody Bellinger. You can't rely on David Peterson. You can't rely on Clay Holmes because this is the first year Clay Holmes is coming off of the most innings he's ever pitched in his career. And we're expecting these guys just to stay healthy. When Clay Holmes couldn't stay healthy, David Peterson fell apart midway through the season in the second half. And that is what we're going to leave our hope and dreams with this rotation. And yes, there is possibilities of the Mets making trades that we've heard that we're going to be talking about in this stream. We know about Tyree Skubal. We know about Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez. These guys are available. These guys could fit the rotation very, very well. Now, is it okay? And we'll get into all of this, but it's just kind of an introduction to what I'm thinking here with the New York Mets, right? We can talk about outfield all we want. Here's what I would do. If you're so afraid of trading all these prospects, because David Stearns still has not made a big trade that is a wow factor, and that is, wow, he did trade those prospects to bring in this and this guy. Or he did make that huge signing that we all probably thought he wasn't going to do or capable of. Hasn't done that. Has not done that. And that is where I'm concerned. If it was me, if you're so afraid of trading all these prospects to bring in pitching and bringing in, outfield help, how about this? How about letting Carson Bench be your center fielder or left fielder, bring in either Luis Robert Jr. in a trade, which a lot of people believe that Mark Vientos could be enough, even if the White Sox pay a little bit of the money. That is something that you should do, right? You kind of don't overpay, so to speak. I don't call it an overpay. I call it getting the guys you want and doing what you need to do to get them. And let's say Carson Bench left field, Luis Robert Jr. center field. Luis Robert Jr. is a great defender in center field. Carson Bench does not have to be the center field. He can put him in left field. He has very good range. He has a good glove. And you'll see what he get offensively. But what would I do? I would get starting pitching. I would go out there and get two starters. There is nothing stopping the New York Mets to get in these two starters. You're not paying a lot for Luis Robert Jr. Let's say it's Mark Vientos. Nobody's going to cry about Mark Vientos at all. He's not. Basically, Mark Vientos is out of this lineup at the current moment. I don't believe him playing first base. I don't think that's a possibility for the New York Mets. Even though Stearns talked about it, there's no way. He's a terrible defender. You got Jorge Polanco in here to DH, play multiple positions, kind of takes a lot of Mark Vientos' spots or opportunities in this lineup. So Luis Robert Jr. center field, Carson Benz left field. Have no problem with that. We'll talk about first base in a second. But there's free agent guys available and there's trade guys available. Go get 2 starters. Why is it so hard? I just don't understand it. I don't understand why they're making it so difficult when there's 2 starters on the free agent market, or even 3. I don't think Michael King's going to be a New York Met. I think he, quote-unquote, priced himself out of the New York Mets. So that's already concerning. When Michael King prices you out of a free agent sign-in, that worries me. Because if it was a 3-year deal for Michael King, I think the Mets would be all over that. But I think he's probably going to get a 4th year. And that is where the Mets are going to take a step back. And I can't stand the fact that a lot of reports are saying that the Mets were very much in on Michael King. That was one of their top free agent pitching targets. And they're out because of a possibility of a 4th year. I just don't understand that. If you like the guy, go get him. 1 year should not make or break you getting him. And that's where it annoys me with everything that's been going on with David Stearns and the New York Mets. These signings aren't happening. These trades aren't happening because David Stearns is nitpicking prospects and money in years for everybody. He doesn't budge, if at all, very minimal. And I think it's going to cost us certain players we have been talking about and that we'll talk about today. That is concerning, that is going to cause us to miss out on guys. And that should not happen. When the Mets got the capital in regards to money and the assets in the regards of the prospects, this should not be that difficult. You want guys, you go get them. That's it. I just don't see what is the issue with doing that when you're trying to put a team together, right? You blew up the core, which I'm not 100% against. I said that everybody who's been watching this channel, and if you're new to the channel, I've said this for a few years now. You can't continue the same core. I don't care about your emotional attachment to players. I don't care about the stats. The problem with this team was they continue to lose with the same core guys. You can't keep on running it back, and then when these guys are 30, 34, 35 years old and they're past their prime, they're untradeable. You got to break up the core. This has been 7 years with Alonso, Nimmo, Diaz, even including McNeil in there. It's constant losing, constant choke jobs. And everybody wants to give credit to Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz and Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil at times. Yet, when there is a choke job and they blow divisions, they embarrass themselves in the postseason, and they continue to fail and have underperforming seasons, too many Met fans don't want to blame those core guys. Why? Don't give them credit, or give them credit all the time and not give them the blame when things are going bad. Has nothing to do with face of our franchise, look at his numbers. If it was all about the numbers, why do we see every year in the postseason, there's always guy like a Tommy Edman? There's guys that, Adolis Garcia basically fell off the face of the map. Looked like he was going to be a star. And these guys are getting, hanging on for dear life and getting 1-year deals. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, there's ways to win without the core that continues to lose. No, Dolo, Diaz was part of the core. He's been here since 2019. He's been here since 2019. He was with Pete Alonso when he came up. Nimmo was already here. McNeil was already here. Diaz was part of the core. And I even throw Lindor into that mix because he came in 2021. So in the 5 to 7 year period, these guys have been the mainstay of this organization. when everybody else has been rotating and everybody keeps on saying, oh, bring guys in around these guys. How many different around these guys type of players you're going to continue to bring? Because the constant is those guys. But Dolo, it's not different. He was one of the faces of your team. He's one of the mainstays. He's one of the big guys on your team. He's a part of this. Right? 2019, when we went on that run in the late July into September, into August, look what happened in September when the core guys did not show up and fell on their ass. When Diaz had a terrible season, right? Those games matter. Southern, it's not about being the best closer in baseball, right? You could say Pete Alonso is one of the premier power hitters in baseball. But I'm sorry, you can't, just because you like the player and you have an emotional attachment doesn't mean we continue the core until they're too old to do anything with them. They've been here between 5 and 7 years, some 8 years. You got to change something. I'm not saying they're the only problem, but everybody loves to give them credit. Oh my God, where would the Mets be with this guy or that guy? Yeah, well, where were they when the Mets were falling apart? Right? They always kept on saying, oh, we're better than this, we're better than this to the media. Yet, when they came onto the field, I seen a lot of offers, I seen a lot of big strikeouts, I seen a lot of straighted runners with runners in scoring position. This has been a problem for years. Years. And we still act like it's not a problem. Because Met fans, as much as they complain, they don't like change. Especially when there's an emotional attachment to players. And we all forget that, right? Pete Alonso's worst year as a New York Met was 2024. If it wasn't for certain guys, Lindor having an MVP season, Minaya and Severino pitching damn well, Jose Iglesias, right? Mark Vientos, guys that actually stepped up. It wasn't Pete Alonso. Yeah, he did it in the playoffs. Give him all the credit in the world for that. When Brandon Nimmo was going 0 for 15, 0 for 20 in a 5-6 game, a 3, 4, 5 game stretch, constantly. It was other guys that put us over the hump, right? When Lindor carried his team in 2024, everybody was singing the song, singing My Girl, right? Now everybody can't stand him again. But don't talk about Brandon Nimmo, right? Do you know how stupid and how childish you have to be if you're Brandon Nimmo? Where we heard the reports that Nimmo would be pissed off if they named Lindor the captain. Well, Brandon, I'm sorry. You had every opportunity to take that role. You didn't. Because when the team needed you, all you did was complain to the media and never be that leader in the clubhouse. Never be the best player. Where was it? I'm sorry. Same thing goes for Pete Alonso. These guys were here before Lindor. They could have took that leadership role every step of the way. They never took it. Because Lindor, when he got here, right, trying to find his way. I'm not saying he was, that thumbs down thing was, I killed him for it. But he was on the back burner. He even took a step back and allowed Nimmo and Alonso to take that leadership role. He even said it. If you go back to 2022, he even talked about, he goes, I just got here. I'm going to play my part. But I know this is Alonso's team. I know these guys been here. Those are the faces. He said that in spring training. We all know that. Yet, every time, Nimmo and Alonso never took on that role. When things got really bad, who was the one to call the meeting? It wasn't Alonso. Was it Nimmo? Why? Because they were so upset because Lindor took the leader role. Like, grow up. Stop it. Right? Why do we act like Mets teams that won championships, Mets teams that were really good, all were buddies and all liked each other? Did anybody, I wasn't born in 80. I wasn't born when the Mets won the World Series in 86, but I watched all the documentaries. Keith Hernandez and Darryl Strawberry did not like each other. They got into a fist fight on team photo day. We know Gary Carter didn't like what Strawberry and Gooden was doing with the drugs. Like, not everybody has to like each other. Not everybody. But you know what? You know what that team did? They came together as a team because the ultimate goal is to win. It seemed like the ultimate goal in the Mets clubhouse was who's going to be the captain or the leader. It's stupid. It's stupid. It just doesn't make sense. So things needed to change. I called this 2 years ago. You got to change the core. We keep on losing, yet we blame everybody else. Let's blame the GM. Let's blame the manager. Let's blame the coaches. Right? The coaches were the scapegoat last year. It was the scapegoats with all the fans. Oh, it's Hefner's fault. Oh, it's this guy's fault. Oh, it's that guy's fault. Everybody's going to start blaming Mendoza now. Yet, the same guys have been problems with multiple GMs, multiple managers, and multiple coaches. Who's been the mainstay in this organization? Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Diaz. That was all before Cohen. They were all here before Cohen. Let's not act like that's not the case. Multiple GMs, multiple owners, multiple coaches, multiple managers. The same goddamn core guys have been here. Yet we praise them like they won for us, like they won championships. They're not the core four of the Yankees. They're nothing. They're the Mets core that have been predominant losers. Let's remember that when we talk about them. They won nothing. Multiple choke jobs, losing divisions, falling apart in the second half. Yet, let's not blame them. God forbid we blame them. Nimmo had a no-trade clause. He accepted that trade. Pete Alonso always talked about being a Met. Yet, didn't sign that 7-year deal when the Mets gave him the extension offer. He left. So the leaders that everybody loves, or the core guys that everybody loves, they couldn't wait to get the hell out of here. And now that could say something about the organization. I 100% agree with you. If you say that. And that's a good argument. But hey, they ran. They couldn't wait to leave. So, okay, Nimmo, get traded to the Rangers. We all know why you went there. We all know, right? You got your buddy Jacob DeGrom there. It's a tax-free state. And if you want to get a little political, you think Nimmo wants to be in New York? Of course not. Pete Alonso, if everybody pays attention with what goes on with Baltimore, is they play. They have spring training in Florida. They have spring training on the West Coast. Where do you think Pete Alonso lives? It was an easy call. And guess what? That's the only team that gave him 5 years. Obviously. The Mets didn't make him an offer. I don't like how David Stearns is building his team, but I'm not blaming him for breaking up the core that has been constant losers. We want to keep the memory of these players and the emotion of these players, yet when everybody complains that the Mets continue to lose and don't win championships, and we're going on 40 years since the Mets won the World Series, let's not blame anybody that has actually been on this team longer than some owners, longer than some coaches, managers, GMs. This is the problem. Now, I'm not telling you that David Stearns is going to put, mix a bunch of guys together and it's going to work. But this is the first year where he's really making the team his own. And as much as I don't trust him and I don't like him, he is making his own. He is making his own bet. And if it doesn't work, you all know I will be the first one to kill him. I kill him now. So let him make his bed. We can disagree with the moves or not. But at the end of the day, it's going to be his job on the line very soon. Because I'm telling you this right now. If the New York Mets have another bad season next year, going into a CBA possible lockout, I don't think David Stearns is going to be here, to be quite honest with you. And I would not blame Steve Cohen to firing him. Right now, I see this team, I think this is a third-place team in the NL East. I don't see how we are better right now than we were last year with 83 wins. Now, there's a lot of offseason left. There's a lot of players available on the trade market and the free agent market. So we'll have to see. And we'll wait, right? As I said, and we'll get definitely into the topics right now. But David Stearns is finally putting the team that he's making this team. He is making his own bed. At some point, he's got to lay in that bed. And he's got to take all the arrows that Met fans are going to give him. Because he's in a tough spot, but he put himself in this tough spot. And nobody's going to feel sorry for him. Nor should we. So, this is where the New York Mets have a lot of work to do. They got a lot of holes to fill. And that is where we get into the rumors the reports that we've been seeing the last couple of days, over the last week. And something that is number one on the topic list today is reportedly the Mets are very in on Cody Bellinger. Now, this kind of got away a little bit where the Mets, especially in the early part of the offseason, where the Mets were very involved or very focused on Cody Bellinger, and then it kind of dwindled away. And now the Mets are very much in on Cody Bellinger. Now, if Stearns is not, this is what I want to see from David Stearns, and this involves Cody Bellinger. I don't think Cody Bellinger is taking a 3-year deal. He's probably going to get 5 or 6 years. Now, you can complain about the player and not trusting him, but Cody Bellinger fits this team like a glove. It can set up the rest of the offseason, depending on what you do. Right? Cody Bellinger can play all 3 outfield positions, and he can play first base. Now, if the Mets get Cody Bellinger, you can set up your offseason the way you probably want to. Because if you don't get a first baseman and you get 2 outfielders or you get 1 outfielder, like a center field like Luis Robert, and you put Carson Bench in left field, Cody Bellinger can play first base. If you get Okamoto, you can put Bellinger in left or center and put Carson Bench in one of the holes in the outfield. Cody Bellinger fits his team like a glove. He's a solid, great defender in all positions that he plays, and he's a solid bat. I'm not saying he's an outstanding bat or crazy power bat, but he can knock in 20 to 25 home runs, no problem, with Jorge Polanco, who's going to play every day. Who knows? We'll talk about that as well. Who could hit 20 to 25 home runs? That's 45, hopefully 50 home runs between the two of them. And hopefully the Mets are still at it. So, Cody Bellinger makes sense. But is David Stearns willing to do it, right? I don't want – if we hear that the Mets were willing to give him 4 years and Cody Bellinger signs with 5s, here lies the problem. Once again, David Stearns loses a player for not going the extra year because he sets a amount or he values a player at this and doesn't budge. This is why he loses people, especially in free agency, especially in trades. And this is why I can't stand him. And again, I'm not going to completely blow up on it. I can't stand him, and I've got on him many times, but I will completely blow up. And it's not just about Cody Bellinger. It's a trend. And at some point, you do it too many times, it becomes a trend. Like, if you never get your guy, because of a year more on a contract, I don't see where 4 or 5 years is going to break you. Not financially for sure because of Cohen, but because you don't want to go past change your philosophy a little bit, like it's going to be the worst thing in the world. Stop losing players you want because of a year. It's the dumbest thing. Mainly, would you pay Polanco $20 million a year for 2 years? Or $40 million for 2 years? Look what Kim got with the what was it? The Braves, I think it was. $20 million for 1 year. Look at these players that, let's be honest, good players, but not top players. They're getting $20 million. So yeah, Bellinger's probably going to get between $27 and $30 million a year. Why are we talking about money here? If you want the player, go get him. Yeah, Dolo, and that's the other problem with David Stern. And again, it was not like, what was Diaz asking for? See, we don't know that, right? We know the Dodgers gave him $69 million over 3 years, a couple of deferments. What was Diaz asking the Mets for? 75, 80 million? No, I'd still do that, but I can understand why David Stearns got pissed off. And why Diaz also got pissed off. I'm not blaming either one of them in this sense. I think it was just a perfect storm of on the negative side for the Mets. Yeah, mainly, and we can still sign Terry Skubal. Because with David Stearns and his 1 year deals and 2 years with an option that he always gives to these guys, there's going to be a lot of money coming off the books next year. So a lot of money's coming off the books. You save 2 years on the Nimmo contract. After this year, you'll have a lot of 1 year deals with Jorge Polanco. Jeff McNeil comes off the books if he's still here. So there's more than enough. And Storm, I do agree, his moves sometimes contradict himself. Contradictory. 100%. 100% agree. But it just doesn't make sense. And Frank, I agree with you as well. He needs to grow some balls. I agree. I want to see David Stearns get uncomfortable. Cody Bellinger is a start. Get uncomfortable. Like, I will give Stearns credit if he goes and give a 5-year deal or even a 6-year deal to Cody Bellinger, whatever it might be. Like, I understand value in players, but sometimes you have to go past that. You got to get past that to get the player. Like, everybody just said, the Mets will just sign Terry Skubal. Why? Why do we just assume that? The same fans that think, just wait until next year and sign Terry Skubal, like we're the only team that's going to bid for him. When you have more teams bidding for him in the offseason next year than teams that are trading for him right now. There might be 4 teams that might be willing to trade for him to have the money to pay him, when you can probably have 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10 teams after Tarek Skubal, because some of those teams might have the money but might not have the prospect capital to pull off the trade. So you have a better chance now of getting Skubal and trade and going for and getting and paying him than to wait and have more teams ready to pay him. Because all you need is that one team, and it might be a team that he might be just looking at and completely overpays, and now you're out with without Terry Skubal. And have you looked at the free agent targets next year? It's not very exciting. The free agency next year is absolutely garbage, from position players to pitching. It's not good, other than Terry Skubal. Like, that's the other thing. There's not a lot of guys out there for teams to be fishing for. Like this year there was. You have Cease, you got Valdez, you got Suarez, you got Michael King. There's a lot of pitchers out there that you can choose from. There isn't many next year. All eyes are on Terry Skubal. So you got to be careful when you say that. Freddie Peralta as well. Like, that's the thing. Like, who do you want, Terry Skubal or Freddie Peralta? They're both free agents. Who would you want? You should all choose Terry Skubal. But we know what Stearns is going to do and get Freddie Peralta because he's the lesser of the two. And then we're going to be that what-if factor again. Because when you always go for the lesser, player, which Peralta is a really good pitcher, but then get him now. Trade for him and pay him. Same thing goes for Tarek Skubal. Jay, listen, no, I don't believe Stearns is doing it. That's what I've been saying. I think David Stearns is going to lose out on a lot of these guys. And we're going to end up getting, the lesser of the players or the guys who aren't as good because they're shorter term deals. This is what annoys me. But when it comes to Cody Bellinger, he fits his team like a glove. That's why you should give him 5 or 6 years. Not because I want to give Cody Bellinger 5 or 6 years. I'd love to give all these players 3-year deals. But it's not logical. There's no sense. Like, it just doesn't happen. Max Fried got 8 years because the Yankees had to give him that 8th year to stop him from going from Boston. Garrett Crochet went to the Red Sox because they gave a little bit more capital in asset-wise, prospect-wise, to keep him from any other team that might be competing against them. Sometimes you have to overpay to keep him from another team. Right? The Mets didn't want to give a little bit more for Edwin Diaz, and he went to a rival that you have to beat in the National League. It makes no sense. It's dumb. It is dumb. And Truman, I don't believe that pay that Mets tax stuff. I don't. I think it becomes the top players like a Juan Soto, where to get Juan Soto, you had to overpay to an extent that was crazy. Because you were fighting against the Yankees, where he was already at. So, yeah, but mainly, stop worrying about the money. If he fits your team, you get him. So he only fits the team if he's worth $20 million, but not $30 million. He fits your team regardless of how much he's getting paid. He fits this team better than anybody that you can think of position player-wise because of what the Mets can do after the Bellinger signing. If you get Cody Bellinger, he can set up the rest of your offseason because you got options here. You don't have to, oh my God, I need a first baseman. Now I have to go to Murakami or Okamoto or somebody else. Yandy Diaz. Guys like that. Bellinger, oh my God, we got to get a center fielder or we got to get an outfielder that can play center or left. Oh, okay. Well, we can put Bellinger there and now we can focus on first base. Like, that's the thing. Like, Bellinger automatically fits his team like a glove because of the moves the Mets have already made. With Alonso gone, Nimmo gone. 2 holes that Bellinger can fill. He can fill one of them. We all know that. That's why it fits it like a glove. Yeah, but mainly, again, trading for Kwan, this guy's a singles hitter. He's a good player, but our current lineup doesn't really need that. It really doesn't. It doesn't. I'm sorry. You're losing nearly 70, let's say 65 home runs with Pete Alonso and Nimmo gone. You can't bring in a guy who hits what, 12, 13? Bellinger is a guy that is a better player than Kwan. I like Kwan, don't get me wrong. But you're also got to trade multiple prospects for a guy who is not going to be an impact player that you're going to need. To trade multiple prospects for a couple of more years of control. When you can get Bellinger who fills more roles. And Eric, I agree. Tucker makes sense too. But I'm not even bringing up Tucker in this conversation, in this stream today because it's stupid. Because I don't think the Mets are going that far. That's why we're talking about Bellinger here. I always want to get the best player. Like, if you got a hole in the outfield, go get the best player. Tucker's the best player, but the Mets aren't doing that. I'd be shocked. So Bellinger fits like a glove because he makes you set up your offseason in any way you want when it comes to what else can you get this offseason to fill the holes that you have in the outfield and first base, and it solves your problem. Because you can use the rest of your offseason to see what you can get on the market. And if the outfield is easier to get trade-wise, great. You do it. Now Bellinger can play first base. That's why. So now we get into the interesting stuff that we've been hearing over the last, I would say, week or so with a Mets-Padres trade involving Mason Miller. A lot of talk about Bogarts could be in this deal because of the Mets would take a bad contract back. Again, a lot of this are reports. It could be speculation. We do know because this is Mets reporters talking about this, that, the Mets are in on this guy or that guy. These are Padres reporters. And when we get to Luis Robert Jr., White Sox reporters, these guys are reporting this. So it's not that, the Mets never leaked nothing. Has nothing to do with the Mets on this part. We've heard reporters from San Diego. We heard reporters from the south side of Chicago talking about players that are linked to the New York Mets, and there's names been involved. That is what we're hearing. Not from Mets reporters, and we know the Mets don't leak stuff. So it's coming from outside the New York area. That is why it's picking up steam. And we've been hearing these Padres. First, we heard Lindor Tatis a couple of weeks ago. Now it's coming into this part of, Mason Miller obviously should be the centerpiece of a deal because you would have one of the better bullpens, back into the bullpens in baseball with Miller and Williams. I don't want Williams to be my closer. I'd rather him be the setup man. He did much better as a setup guy in the 7th, 8th inning than he did the 9th last year with the Yankees. I'm not saying that Williams can't go back to being one of the best closers in baseball like he was 2 years ago. But I don't want to risk that, leave that as a possibility. And what do you do if Williams is a disaster? Where are you going? Is Dylan Ross going to be the guy? There's no proof in that. There's nobody good enough to think that. So that's why you need that other option. Mason Miller makes so much sense for the Mets. And I think that the Mets are trying to get Bogart. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think David Stearns, because he's a cheap bastard, wants Bogarts in the deal. Not because he's a great player. He is kind of, dwindling a little bit in, talent-wise. He isn't the same outfielder. He isn't the same hitter that he was a couple of years ago. He does have a massive contract. But when it comes to David Stearns, he'd rather give up 2 prospects instead of 3. And I'm not against that. But getting another older player to play left field when you already got an older second baseman, and you're probably going to get, an older, I have a feeling we're getting older here. And that's okay. Sometimes proven talent, I'm not saying these guys are 40 years old here, but you could see their offense isn't the same. Their defense isn't the same. So I think David Stearns is trying to get Bogarts in a deal to limit the damage prospect-wise for Mason Miller. I wouldn't be against it because you get Mason Miller. This is kind of like a similar situation to Cano and Diaz for Kelnick. He's not – it's a little different because Cano was kind of on the way out. Like, he was not the same player. I'm not saying Bogarts is anywhere near Cano in career-wise, but you could see the similarities here, right? You're trying to get a top closer, and you're taking on a bad contract. It's a very similar situation. Now, it worked in the Mets' favor making that trade because Diaz was the top closer in baseball, and you had your closer for the last, 6 years, 7 years? You could do that with Mason Miller, and he's under control I'm not going to say definitely cheap because arbitration is going to jack up his prices, but a lot cheaper than probably what you would think he would be making as a top closer. So would I do this deal? Yeah, I know McLean's not going to be in that deal. Now, is there a possibility Carson Bench can be in that deal? Possibly. I'm not against that, but it depends on what you do the rest of the offseason. Right? If you bring Bogarts in that deal, he's your left fielder for the foreseeable future. So it kind of makes sense that Benj might be in that deal. But you can also try to keep Benj, but it's going to be very hard to keep Nolan McLean and Benj out of that trade. Now, we know Nolan McLean is not getting traded, but is Benj going to be that untouchable as well, where now you have to talk about, well, we'll give you Jonathan, Brandon Sproat, Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford, guys like that. Maybe a Mauricio, Acuna, right? Those are the other options. Now, I don't know what the Padres are looking for. You would think they were looking for pitching because they lost Dylan Cease. Yu Darvish is out for the year. They're probably going to lose Michael King. So you're going to think they're going to probably ask for Sproat or Jonathan. I mean, they might ask for both, but I'm not giving both. That doesn't make any sense for the New York Mets, right? If Jonathan is sought after, which everybody wants Jonathan, I give Jonathan for that. Because if Jonathan makes me put Ryan Clifford in there or Luis Angel Acuna, and because we're taking on the Bogarts contract, if that's all it's going to cost, I'll drive him to San Diego. Because Jonathan is still going to develop. And I'm not saying he's going to be a good pitcher. He's not going to be a really good pitcher. I think he will be. But I'm not waiting for that when we got older players coming in here. And, Lindor isn't 25 years old. He's in his 30s now. How many more years are going to have of prime Lindor? Maybe 2, possibly 3? Juan Soto, what are you going to wait 2 or 3 years while he's over 30 years old now? And now we're going to be talking about his prime years? Like, we don't have time for that. Right? Brandon Sproat showed something. He's a little bit more developed. He has good stuff as well. You already got Nolan McLean in here. You bring in Mason Miller. You bring in Bogarts. I'm not the biggest fan of Bogarts, but you get in Miller. So Bogarts could be dealt with because he is a pretty good player. Not great. I think he can be Nimmo, to be quite honest with you. He's a little bit better. He's a better defender than Brandon Nimmo. I do like what he can do offensively. I think he can be surprisingly good. And that is just where, yeah, LB, I don't care about the 5 starts. The same reason why Nolan McLean shouldn't be the ace of the staff because of 9-10 starts. Right? Nobody wants to give up anybody, but they want everybody. You see the problem with that? Right? There were some stupid Met fans that didn't want to trade Michael Fulmer for Yoenis Cespedes. There's some people that really complained about Kelnick for Cano and Diaz. Jonathan is not ready yet. And maybe he will be later this year. But I'm not stopping a trade for one of the top closers in baseball. If Jonathan is a part of a Tariq Skubal deal, you're getting the best pitcher in baseball. Like, why are we not focusing on the player we're getting? Jonathan is not a major league pitcher at this point. He probably won't help this team at least until the second half. Maybe. And that's if things work out. Let him develop the third pitch. But I'm not going to be overly crying because Met fans seem to, right, they want everybody, but they don't want to give up anybody. Right? Let's give Tariq Skubal for Jeff McNeil and Tyrone Taylor. That's the way Met fans think. Okay, LB, what mistakes are you talking about with the New York Mets, right? What have the Mets traded that is like, oh my God, I can't believe they traded him? Bogarts is playing left field, Dalton. He hasn't played shortstop in a very long time. He can play, but he can play left field. Definitely play the outfield. He was a shortstop in Boston. Like, he could play center field too, but I'd rather have him in left field. Like, if you can hold on to Carson Benj, which seems to be a little bit much more ready than Jonathan in the pitching sense, if you can keep Carson Benj, I do that. Truman, the Mets didn't trade Wheeler. He signed. The Mets didn't offer him anything because that was the Wilpons. Oh, okay, mainly. Okay, PCA. right? Did you see his second half last year? Right? He was a world beater in the first half. In the second half, he was nowhere to be found. He was terrible. Right? PCA, and I agree with you guys. The reason why I didn't like the PCA trade, it wasn't because they traded PCA for Baez. That wasn't the problem. The problem was trading PCA thinking that Javier Baez was the missing piece to that Mets team in 2021 was an absolute joke. The Mets had no pitching. The Mets had too many holes to fill. Javier Baez wasn't the guy that was, that was the only thing we were missing. That's why PCA was a stupid trade for Javier Baez, because the Mets weren't there. I trade PCA if Javier Baez was the missing piece. Then that trade makes sense. Just because it might have not worked out doesn't mean it was a bad trade. Like, trading Michael Fulmer for Yoenis Cespedes seemed to be the missing piece for the Mets in 2015. That's why you make that deal, trading your number one overall pitching prospect. Trading PCA for Javier Baez when you had a tremendous amount of holes on that roster, that's why it was stupid. So I wouldn't have been against the trade if Javier Baez was the missing piece. He wasn't. But I know everybody brought up PCA, but nobody brings up anybody else, right? It's funny how that works. Right? PCA is probably going to be a really good player. That's fine. Right? But the Cubs, who choked the division away because PCA was one of the big problems in the second half, where the Brewers took over the division. The Brewers, by the way, took over the division. No, Bogarts did play shortstop. That's what I'm saying. He could play the outfield. They put him in left field a couple of times last year, and more than a couple of times last year. And he's played left field. So he is a guy that can play left field. The Mets Bogarts isn't being mentioned to play shortstop. Like, we all know that. Yeah, Dolo, PCA would have been our current cadet. He would have been probably our center fielder. Sure. But we just assume he would have fit this team like there's sometimes where players might not be as good here and be better somewhere else. It's a possibility. Like I said, I didn't like the PCA for Javier Baez trade. If you go back when that trade happened, I didn't think it made sense because the Mets needed more than Javier Baez. That's why it didn't make sense. Bogarts did play the outfield. Watch. Hold on 1 second, guys. That's interesting. Because with the reports coming out, right? If you look at the reporters, right? And boom, I'll get you there in a second. You're right. Bogarts did outperform shortstop defensively. Yes. Yeah, Lindor took a step back. 100% I agree. So here's the thing. Why is it Xander Bogaerts, and Dolo, we'll get to that as well. Why is it that reporters are talking about Xander Bogaerts so much like he's going to be playing left field? Do we know something, or do we not know something they do? Because that's what I don't understand. Because Xander Bogaerts doesn't make sense as a shortstop or even a second baseman. Shit, even a third baseman because of Beatty and Lindor and Simeon. So just like Jorge Polanco makes no goddamn sense at first base, even though David Stearns talked about him possibly playing first base at this moment. Is Bogaerts the same possibility in left field? That's the, like, if you look at the reports, right? People are talking about Bogaerts in left field. Like, Bogaerts, because if it's a bad contract, why would the Mets take him back if he could to play the infield, right? Left field makes the only sense. And I think he's athletic enough to do it, to be quite honest with you. But this is what David Stearns seems to want to do. He thinks everybody can play everywhere, right? Jorge Polanco might be playing first base. He's played one inning in first base. But you know what? Lucas Duda played left field, right? We all seen that. And he was a first baseman. So I don't want Xander Bogaerts, but I'd rather get Mason Miller on its own, but I think Mason Miller is going to cost us more by himself. Now, again, if you're okay with that, then fine. But trading for Mason Miller and maybe giving 2-3 prospects because of his years of control and being a really damn good closer, you could have just signed Diaz and you would have saved those assets for a Tariq Skubal trade or something bigger. This is why it contradicts what they're trying to do here. Like the guy who doesn't like to give up prospects didn't want to sign Edwin Diaz, but willing to give prospects for Mason Miller, who is under control for the next couple of years. I just don't get it. So do I think this Bogaerts-Miller trade is possible? Again, I don't know why Bogaerts, besides being a bad contract, fits the Mets if it's not about left field. And San Diego might be trying to fleece the Mets, but I think to fleece the Mets, I think this trade would have happened already, to be quite honest with you. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to me that the New York Mets, or David Stearns in this sense, is thinking this way when he could have just paid Edwin Diaz for the next couple of years instead of trading assets for Mason Miller. Now, you can determine, would you rather have Mason Miller or Edwin Diaz? Kind of a crapshoot. We know Edwin Diaz can do it, but for how many more years? And Mason Miller is a young phenom with a great arm as a closer. So it's hard to think where the Mets would go here with why they're doing it. It's contradicting. Like, these moves are weird. Like, Jorge Polanco shouldn't be considered for first base when he's played one inning. Jorge Polanco should be the DH. That would be more acceptable. But because David Stearns, is the smartest guy in the room and thinks outside the box way too much, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. I just don't understand. So Miller Bogaerts is the talk of the town. Maybe it's Miller Pivetta, where you can take Pivetta's contract and get. Now that makes more sense. That makes more sense. Pairing Miller and Pivetta, because obviously that makes so much more sense for the New York Mets, because you get a rotation piece who definitely could be a solid number 2. He's definitely a number 3, but I would put Pivetta as a number 2. I mean, that probably takes you out of other possible trade scenarios, but I'd rather put Pivetta in that deal. I think Pivetta makes more sense than Bogaerts. Nelson Cruz, Scott Kazmir. Yeah. Victor Zambrano. Oh, those days. All right. So the other interesting thing, and I wonder if this correlates with the whole Cody Bellinger thing, is Luis Robert Jr. a backup plan to Cody Bellinger? Or, because if you're very in on Bellinger and the Mets are shifting focus to Luis Robert Jr., well, okay. I'd rather have Bellinger and Robert Jr. here than Carson Benj and Robert Jr. at this moment. I mean, they could be. PJ, I'm not saying the name has come up with Bogaerts because of the bad contract situation. Like, again, it could be Pivetta and Miller. That makes more sense. So being very in on Bellinger, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, does that correlate with Robert Jr. as, okay, we're going to fix this outfield by signing Bellinger and trading for Robert Jr. for center field? Because in that sense, you keep Carson Benj to develop possibly the entire year. Or if he's that good in the second half, you can bring him up. Robert Jr. is only on a 1-year deal. And you don't have to sign Luis Robert Jr. after this year. Hopefully you get lightning in a bottle and a contract year, he goes off. And then you can give Carson Benj the opportunity after the 2026 season. So we'll see. I wanted Robert Jr. last year at the trade deadline. I think it made sense for the Mets. Of course, we get Cedric Mullins because, the lesser of two evils. And that is history now. So I think Robert Jr. needs a change of scenery. I'm not going to say he's going to be all-star caliber, but I think he'll be solid. He's good defensively. If you get something out of the bat, I think a change of scenery would just do wonders for him. I truly believe that. I would do it. Like, if Mark Vientos is what the White Sox are looking for, I've heard Vientos and I've heard Acuna. If it's 1-for-1, either one of those guys, get him the hell out of here. Bring in Robert Jr. That's what I would do. But the next topic, where is the A's coming from? I don't know. Right? The Mets were linked to Framber Valdez from the beginning of the offseason, which kind of shocked a lot of people because, you don't spend a lot of years on pitching that are over 30 years old. But, let's give 3-year deals to 32, 33 years old because they had one solid season. So, Knicks, I'll do it, but not for a prospect. Well, then you're not getting him. It's not going to be a salary dump. The White Sox are willing to pay some of that money to get a better prospect. Yeah, Truman, there are no races. That's a lie. Framber Valdez would be an ace. Terry Skubal would be an ace. I know people don't think so, but Sandy Alcantara would be an ace. PCA just had his best year, because it was kind of his first full year. But if you look at it overall, he had a terrible second half. Striked out more. His defense is outstanding. But he had a terrible second half. It's a big reason why the Cubs choked the division away when they had a huge lead. Yeah, Boo, I don't think that's fair. I don't think Robert Jr. is basically Jose Siri. I think Jose Siri was never the offensive player that people talked about. Robert Jr. is a guy that we've seen the potential that he has. I don't know what it is, but I mean, it's the White Sox, so I can't tell you either way. I think Robert Jr. is Timo Siri. I don't think it's the other way around. Well, yeah, of course, Robert Jr. for PCA, but we're talking about PCA like we can put him in center field tomorrow. The same thing that Met fans bitched and moaned about Drew Gilbert. The dude batted 180. Why? Because he started screaming in the dugout, acting like a maniac. The Giants fell apart as well. And Drew Gilbert was a part of that falling apart. He batted 180. He wasn't very good either. That Met fans complain, how can you get rid of Drew Gilbert? Well, Drew Gilbert fell through the Met system. Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford passed him on the depth charts for the outfield. That's it. So, about the A's, again, where is the A's coming from? I do not want Nolan McLean being at the top of this rotation by him lonesome himself. Right? Michael King ain't going to solve that. Nick Pivetta is fine, but it's not going to get me excited. What will get me excited is trading for Tarek Skubal or signing Framber Valdez. I mean, if the Mets were smart, they would do both, but that's not happening. Give me one of those guys. Right? Some might say Ranger Suarez. I don't trust Ranger Suarez, but he's a damn good pitcher. Would I be against it? No. Michael King is not exciting me. I don't think the Mets are getting him now because clearly King priced himself out for some apparent reason. Patrick McLean shouldn't be our fourth starter. I'm not going that far. But why McLean has to be the ace of the staff is just stupid. Because there's guys out there you can put at the top of your rotation and let Nolan McLean become the number 2. What is wrong with that? Let him work his way and do what he needs to do, get even better in his first full season. And if he becomes the ace the following year, because Framber Valdez is still a very good number 2 because of the way he pitches, and he's not the ace anymore, so you flip it. But at least you had that security blanket. There is no security blanket for Nolan McLean. If Nolan McLean takes a step back, because Met fans, the delusional Met fans that a lot of you are, sorry to say, it's not all of you, but some of you think that Nolan McLean is Jacob deGrom. Let him prove it. But if Nolan McLean takes a step back, who are you turning to? Mr. Clay Holmes? David Peterson? Kodai Senga, who quit on the team? There's nothing to fall back on. So you're putting all the pressure on Nolan McLean, and if he takes even a little step back, the Mets are very much in trouble. Very much in trouble. Pivetta is fine, but it's not a security blanket. It's a dangerous game to play. Same thing goes for Michael King. Framber Valdez and Tariq Skubal are the guys to get. Framber Valdez is a workhorse. He's a very good pitcher. Tariq Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball. Joel, it's not about being an ace away, though. Framber Valdez will be here for the next 5 to 6 years. I believe if Tariq Skubal, the Mets trade for Tariq Skubal, they will extend him. And even if they can't get him to extend, I don't see the Mets letting him go and paying a tremendous amount of money to keep him. It's not about just this year. Even though Met fans should worry about this year, because Met fans act like next year doesn't exist. It's the dumbest fucking thing. Stop worrying about 27 and 28 and 29. Worry about 2026. Worry about 2027 when 26 is over. Like it's not. David Stearns is making this so hard to put a roster together because his cheap ass is not willing to go past 3 years for anybody. This is the problem. He needs to change that philosophy. And until he does that, he's not long for this job. I'm telling you that right now. It does not make sense how Met fans act like 2026 is not happening. Like it doesn't exist. Like we're just passing over that year. Everybody's concerned about 27. Who cares? Right now, you can even say the Mets are a fourth place team considering how well the Marlins played at the end of the year. But I'll put them in third place just to be nice. You're not better than the Braves, who is getting their pitchers healthy. They made a couple of moves. They're back into the rotation right now is better than the New York Mets. Signing, Raisel Iglesias and Robert Suarez. So we're not better than the Braves. The Phillies just got Schwarber back. They're probably going to add another pitcher. Like, we're not better than these teams. This was an opportunity for the Mets to do better in this division. Get better. And we're afraid to do it. Stearns is afraid to do it. Because he'd rather sign a 3-year deal for a lesser player, and if he turns out, acts like he's a genius, when all we're doing next year is finding those replacements. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, but Christian, a lot of the kids, it's fine. But don't tell me you're excited about these kids. Let's say that, in all likelihood, McLean, Sproat, and Tong end up in this rotation. You're just saying that they're going to be good. If they're bad, and the possibility of Nolan McLean taking a step back, I'm not saying he can't take a big step forward. He definitely can. But there's no backup plan if Nolan McLean takes a step back. Why do we just assume Jonah Tong is going to find that third pitch? Why do we just assume Brandon Sproat will get better? See that word, hope? That doesn't fucking win. And too many people would rather have hope and be excited about homegrown talent because Met fans would rather lose and keep homegrown talent than win and get proven players in here that might not be homegrown. We're obsessed with that nonsense. Yeah, Christian, they were misused last year, but I'm not blaming Jonah Tong, but he didn't have a third pitch. The same reason why they were misused last year. They were misused last year because Stearns didn't put the rotation he should have put together. Why put these guys in a position they should not be in? Brandon Sproat might not even be in this rotation starting the year. We know Jonah Tong is starting in the minors. We know Nolan McLean's going to be in this rotation. But we just assume they're going to be good. It's idiotic. Why are we talking about it like it's just going to happen? So, and great. Tong might not be ready in a year or two. Let's say a year. Okay. Why are we talking about 2027? Can we worry about 2026? Dio, my point exactly. How many homegrown guys are on the Dodgers? Right? Do you think Dodger fans give a shit that Will Smith might be their best homegrown talent that is still left on this organization? No. But you know what they're doing, right? They're buying Freddie Freeman jerseys. They're buying Mookie Betts jerseys. Right? They're buying all, Yamamoto jerseys, Otani's, right? Dolo, the entire league knows Tong is special. Great. Give him away. Trade him. Like, everybody knows he's special. I know, because all these teams just can't wait, right? I know. The Detroit Tigers that are going to try to get rid of the best pitcher in baseball, going to get Jonah Tong, and, all of a sudden they're going to be great teams. I mean, come on. Yeah, Christian Scott. He's another one, right? Christian Scott actually showed a lot more than Jonah Tong did. He's supposed to be coming back healthy. That's what all the reports are. So if I tell you Christian Scott is ahead of Jonah Tong, wouldn't Jonah Tong be expendable then? Oh, no, it doesn't count. Mauricio Fuyuki, it's happening. We'll see. All right, so let's finish it up. So Murakami, I wrote this down in my notes. Hold on one second, guys. I usually don't put notes, but let me just hold on one second. So Murakami, obviously the Mets are looking at him, but he needs to make a decision within 6-7 days. That December 22nd is his last day to sign with a team, or he goes back to Japan. Okamoto is January 4th, and Tatsuya Imai is January 2nd. So within 2 weeks, all these guys are either going to be on teams or going back to Japan. So I don't think anybody, they're all going to get signed somewhere. A lot of reports saying that Imai is going to get between 150 and 200 million. Murakami is a guy who is not a really good defender. He has a lot of home runs, but he's batting under 100 with fastballs over 93 miles an hour. Okamoto, I think the Mets should just get Okamoto, sign Bellinger. If you want to put Carson Benz in center field, I'm fine with that. Okamoto is a great defender. I think he can probably hit 20 plus home runs. Put Bellinger in left field. Now your roster is coming together. Your lineup is coming together. And now you got to worry about a little bit more pitching. So, PJ, I'm so glad that the 86 Mets were mostly homegrown. But you know what, though? We all know what it was. It was the trade for Gary Carter. It was the trade for Keith Hernandez. All right? Let's not act like, homegrown is beautiful. I would love to just keep homegrown and all them work out. But you know what? Just look at the World Series champions over the last 5 years. Where were their homegrown guys? Who made those big signings, big trades? Right? Even the Braves in their World Series year basically traded for a whole new outfield. They didn't trade it for Matt Olson. Right? Yeah, they got homegrown talent. I'm not saying, like, a mixture of homegrown talent is fine. But don't depend on it like we're the Miami Marlins or the Tampa Bay Rays. We don't need to do that. We don't need to rely on homegrown talent because we're a small market team. Doesn't make any sense. Ray Knight, same thing, exactly. We all forget that. Yeah, Gooden was good, but and Strawberry, yes, those were the lights. But let's not act like these veteran guys that we traded for weren't the difference. One of the differences of these teams, they were. But all right, so Murakami, December 22nd is his last day he can sign. Amaya is the second. Okamoto's the fourth. I would love the Mets to get Okamoto, to be quite honest with you. I like everything about him. I'm not saying he's going to be good because you never know about these guys. But he's a really good defender. And if David Stearns with his run prevention nonsense that annoys the hell out of me, he's a very good defender. It fits what David Stearns is talking about. He's got a solid bat. Get him. What are you waiting for? I don't think Murakami is going to be a Met. I don't trust that the statistical line that everybody talks about with the under 100 average with 93 miles an hour or higher. That scares me. Amai would be nice, but I don't see the Mets paying $150 to $200 million for Amai. I just don't. Why not do it? And then we could talk about trading for, or bringing in Michael King or bringing in Pavetta or something like that. Now you have a better 1, 2, 3 than you did yesterday. But I think Okamoto and Amaya are probably on the radar of the Mets. I don't think Murakami is. So it's just, again, we are so up in the air of what Stearns' plan is because none of what he's done makes any sense plan-wise. Telling me Jorge Polanco is going to play for some first base is the stupidest thing I ever heard. He is a middle infielder and definitely could be a DH. And silly, Tonga is not the next Tim Lincecum. I don't care about that. I don't care what Jonathan can become. I know what Jonathan is now. I know that teams are looking for him. Just because teams want him doesn't mean he's going to take up the ground. If you want him, I want a big return back. I want a big piece back. I'm not saying trade Jonathan for Luis Robert Jr. I'm talking about Jonathan being in a deal for Tyreek Skubal or somebody big. Not for a little piece. Jonathan needs to bring in a big addition. Big. Anything less than big is a stupid decision. This is the problem. I don't care if he becomes the next Jacob deGrom. Why do I care what he might do with a Detroit Tiger team that's selling their best starter, who might not even pitch for the team this year and doesn't have a third base until he develops that? I don't care. What does the player that you're getting for the Mets do for us? That's the concern. Not what we gave up. Obviously, time will tell. But if the Mets get Tyreek Skubal and Jonathan's a part of that deal, and the Mets extend Tyreek Skubal, you got the best pitcher in baseball for the foreseeable future. And with Nolan McLean, by the way, who we hope is very good. That's what we should be talking about. We're always talking about what we gave up, but never care about what we're getting. That should be more important. At least that's what I think. So, all that being said, a lot of rumors, a lot of reports, and we're just waiting for the ball to drop. We're waiting for something to happen. When is that dam going to break? That is what we're talking about right now, Mets fans. Again, the last topic with Polanco's role, David Stearns came out saying he'll play a little, mostly third, mostly DH, but right now first base. Okay. Doesn't make sense. I don't think Jorge Polanco, I think, is a guy that I think can figure it out at first base, but figuring it out doesn't give me confidence in him. I think he's a solid bat for this lineup. No doubt about it. Switch hitter, 20 to 25 home runs, batting 265, 270, 75 to 85 RBIs, perfect. I take that bet every day of the week. But I don't like how they could use him. I don't want him to play first base. Make him the everyday DH. He's a switch hitter. You don't have to worry about platooning guys at DH, which is the dumbest fucking thing. Let's get it done. David Stearns, do something worth doing, please. Can you make a big signing that's more than 3 years? Can you make a big trade that requires big prospects? Because that shows me you're trying to bring improvement talent here. Don't give me the lesser player because of your philosophical process of not giving top prospects or giving more top prospects or giving that fifth year. Do it. Just get it done. Yeah, Chris, he's playing all over the diamond. Where? Simeon second, Lindor short. Yeah, he might play a couple of games at second. Maybe a few games at third. First base is a joke. DH should be his primary thing. That's what it should be. He's been prone to injury, which is concerning. So more of a reason why I want him as a DH. Less potential for an injury for him playing a position, especially a position he's never played. Like, do I need a guy working on footwork who's been often injured playing first base? That's a little crazy. So we'll see what Polanco's role is going to be. I think whatever the Mets do the rest of the offseason is going to determine where Polanco plays more or not plays more. That is where we are right now. Vinny, how you doing, buddy? So once again, guys, if anything pops off, I got to go to work in a few hours. So if there's any breaking news, probably ain't going to be able to do a breaking news stream if I'm at work. Kind of hard. I'd love to, but it's hard, especially what I do. But tomorrow, maybe make a video, maybe not. I'm not going to probably do a live stream tomorrow unless there is breaking news. Then I'll do a live stream. Thursday, Chris said he will be available. I know Chris is in PR right now during the holiday season. So he said he could be available on Thursday. We'll do either a Mets Hot Stove or some type of other show that we can just get it going, have his opinions and conversations about that back and forth. Because these are good conversations to have back and forth, especially all these reports that is a lot of different opinions and thoughts in regards to prospects, contracts, and all that fun stuff as well. So thank you for tuning in to Mets Hot Stove. Hit that like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel, guys. Keep on coming back for more. Follow me on X, TMWRNYM, and follow me on TikTok, TMWR_NYM as well. And, of course, the official Hot Stove on X as well, NYM Hot Stove. If you want to follow on Hot Stove, we put up all the streams there and all that fun stuff as well. So, guys, check out, hit that notification button as well. If you miss videos or live streams sometimes because you didn't hit that notification bell, hit that now. You'll get all the notifications you get when I post something or go live, guys. Have a great night, guys. Let's go Mets, and I'll see you next time on the Hot Stove, guys. Have a good night.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife.